Hello, my beautiful stars and starlets. You can call me Franky Avery. Very nice to meet you. Today I'll be reading you a story, a sensual tale. A young woman goes to her first Comicon, and things get interesting. So sit back, relax, and join me on this fairy tale adventure. My first Comic-Con, or Anime-Con, really, same concept. I've always enjoyed Japanese animation. I'm obsessed. And otaku. But honestly, who wouldn't love it? There's just something about slipping into another's skin that brings out the prowl in me. My confidence peaks knowing that I can hide behind another identity. Real me is cute. Otaku me is sexy. Real me doesn't say how she feels. Otaku me can talk shit like the Jersey girl I am. Otaku me is hot. I've dressed up for many events, but the years crept up on me. I hit 29 and somehow I managed not to go to any cons. Can you believe it? This year would be different. I bought some fur, made a wig, and dressed up in a classic Felicia costume. I know, amateur. At cons there were literally thousands of women dressed in tiny little get-ups. But I love cat women, and the summer sun brought the Baltimore temperature up to a humid 97 degrees. And I really wasn't in the mood for the whole full-body Mystagon cape and ninja get-up. I took one last look in a three-way mirror before heading out. Large locks of loose cerulean blue curls swept down my shoulders, just touching the small of my back. My mane-like hair was partly contained by a white headband with large white furry cat ears. While most of my hair rolled down my back, a long truss was left as a bang to cover my right eye, Jessica Rabbit style. Except Jessica Rabbit had nothing on me. This wasn't some cheap furry go-go costume. This was movie quality. What little of my body that was covered in white fur. An almost collar-like fur choker fit snug around my neck. Bare shoulders exposed, my arms were covered in white fur. Like a pair of long gloves and boots, my feet and hands were oversized paws with large sharp pink claws. I hoped that security wouldn't mind. While most of my body was exposed, a strip of white fur clung to my back and wrapped around, just covering my nipples, never quite meeting in the middle. The bottoms, or underwear, ran from the top of my curvy hips and met to form a V at my vulva, and a thong in the back. Just below my navel began another V. The fur crept up my toned stomach to the beginning of my ribs, changing direction and curving toward each other, almost achieving a diamond shape just beneath my breasts, but once again, never quite meeting each other in the middle. My long tail took a bit of ingenuity, but I managed to create it so it moved with subtle movements. Damn, I looked so good. After a brief battle as to where to keep my wallet, I was finally ready to hit the streets. As I stepped into character and out of the elevator door across from mine opened, and off of it came a man dressed as one of my absolute favorite characters from a very particular show. He had short, dark, spiky hair with long bangs that swooped over his eyes and rested just above his nose. A large tattoo covered his exposed right pectoral. A long silver chain hung off his neck muscles and swept the top of his lean but very distinct 8-pack. I'm pretty sure I'd never actually seen an 8-pack until then. Dirty-looking gauze bandages were wrapped around each of his biceps, emphasizing his round, muscular shoulders. On top of his shoulders, he held a fairly large ice cannon, as big as him. His held up by a brown leather belt, which sat just below his defined pelvic muscles, pointing to exactly where I want to be. Damn, he looked good. I was dumbfounded as all my senses went into overdrive. Lord, even his ribs were ripped. What is he, fucking Asian Spider-Man? I managed to pull myself together before my jaw went slack. After a brief glance, I gathered my composure. I nodded acknowledgement as I spoke his character's name. Gray. He slowly looked me up and down and nodded back with a grin. Felicia. I quickly turned, nearly smacking him with my long hair, and sashayed away from him, tail swinging with my hips. Damn it, I whispered. I was just a tad bit wet. I walked into the hot summer air and it helped me forget that horrifying moment. I almost reverted back to real me. I couldn't let that happen. I worked so hard to be otaku me. I grew more and more confident about my costume decision while the hot sun beamed against my skin. I reached the convention center without a hitch, but while I walked down the street, I couldn't help but feel like someone was watching me. I mean, yeah, everyone was watching me. I was half naked walking down the streets of Baltimore. But still, after a bit of trouble with security and the authentic nature of my claws, I finally managed to make it to the registration booth. As I signed in, the feeling of being watched came over me again. From the side of my neck to the peak of my breasts to the curve of my hips, someone was undressing me. It felt strangely familiar. My nipples peaked, and once again my panties grew wet at the thought. I quickly looked around, but everyone was in their own little world. Crap, this heat must be getting to me, I thought. Seeking to find relief from this feeling, I headed to the water fountain. After refilling my water bottle, I bent over to take a drink when I suddenly heard a familiar, accented, sexy voice. Felicia. I looked up to my right while bent over to see an 8-pack incredibly close to my face. I inhaled at my surprise and caught the scent of salt and a bit of something else. Peppermint? What's that? You would like to hear more? Well, I'm honored by your desire. If you would like to hear the full story, you may go to my Patreon, Franky Avery. This particular story requires no subscription. Don't worry, I'm not that much of a tease. See you soon. Kisses.